Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much, and it's an absolute pleasure to be with you here today. And unfortunately, I'm only here with you for the morning, and already I have FOMO. I'm so envious of all of you that can be here for the full 2 days. And before I start my presentation, which I'm really going to try and keep short because I think we're a little bit behind schedule, and I'm sure you don't want to listen to me, I just want to start off by saying that the choir this morning reminded me of why we are all here. It's their future that we are here today and tomorrow. It's the future that we are leaving them, and the responsibility that we have to make sure that it's a bright future. So I'm going to just very quickly go through a few slides in terms of hopefully setting some context in the scene for today. And anyone who knows me and anyone who has seen my presentation knows that this is always the first slide. And it will continue to be the first slide until we stop confusing the circular economy for waste recycling. Because the circular economy is about way more than waste management. It's about sustainable resource management. It's about how we as a country are using our resources, whether it be water, energy, materials. It's about ensuring that we have the resources we need to achieve our development goals, our development aspirations as a country. And I think more than ever, it is clear to us that our resources are under threat. We live on a planet of finite resources, and at some point we will run out. We've seen it in South Africa in terms of our energy and the impact that load shedding has had on our economy over the last decade. If the modelling is correct, we know that water demand will exceed supply by 2030. And what do? Do we get to that point and throw our hands up and go, well, that was a cap on the economy? And again, I'm reminded of our youth and the future that they have. So what happens when we start to experience the end of resources? And so, as a research community, we asked ourselves, does the circular economy make sense to South Africa? What does our circular economy look like, both as a country and as a continent? Is it even relevant for us? And so we looked at what are the big drivers behind this movement internationally. The first one is resource scarcity. And many countries have recognized that they don't have the resources they need to achieve their development path. The second big driver that we've seen is the work from the International Resources Panel that shows that 50% of climate impacts, 90% of water stress, and 90% of biodiversity loss comes from the extraction and processing of resources. And if we are to achieve the big planetary crises, the environmental crises that are facing us today, we have to include how we manage and utilize resources. And if the pandemic taught us anything, it's the disruption that we've seen in global supply chains, in the movement of resources. And we heard these comments about building back better, a green economic recovery. But unfortunately, so many economies, what did they do? They kick-started their economies with manufacturing and consumption. And so we asked ourselves, what are our drivers as a country and as a continent? And we've produced a series of documents that are publicly available. I included the URL at the bottom of the slide. There's just a delay. Hopefully there's a delay. All right, just realized there's a delay. We've produced a series of documents that are publicly available that allows you to just explore what the circular economy means in various resource-intensive sectors of our economy. What does the circular economy mean to our agricultural sector? What does it mean in our cities and towns? What does it mean in terms of mobility and how we move goods and services around our country? And so before I wrap up, I just want to touch on some of the things that we're busy with that is being driven by our national government, by the Department of Science and Innovation in particular, but it's around making sure, and that's why it's so fitting, I think, that we're on the University of Cape Town's campus today, in terms of what is the role of our national system of innovation, our universities, our science councils, these bright young minds that are shaping the future. And so as we stand right now, we are in the process of finalising South Africa's first ever circular economy, science, technology and innovation strategy that will help to guide us in answering some of these critical questions around what the circular economy means for us and how we unlock the full potential of this opportunity. Last year we launched Circular Innovation South Africa, which is essentially my office. It is responsible for giving effect to national government circular economy, science, technology and innovation aspirations. And we've launched 2 new funding mechanisms as well to help us move forward in this space. The first is our research grants that go to various universities and science councils. And the second is the first of its kind, also in South Africa, a circular economy demonstration fund. And the whole point of the demonstration fund is to support the private sector, small and large, our small entrepreneurs, small businesses, large companies. It's to support them to adopt, to demonstrate, to scale, to de-risk circular interventions. Because what we realized when we did a lot of this work, we've been doing circular for decades. You don't need to tell us what that looks like. But what we haven't achieved is the scale for meaningful impact. And there's an urgency to scaling these practices. And so how do we take the bright minds that we have in our universities? How do we utilize the infrastructure, the laboratories, the facilities that we have to make them more relevant to business? Because it's going to be business that drives the circular economy. Government's role is about creating the enabling environment for the private sector to thrive in this space. There are 8 demonstration fund projects, and I wish that there were more, but we have 8 demonstration fund projects that we are currently funding, from demonstrating refill and reuse models to urban farming and 1 hectare farms where we're partnering with Stellenbosch University and the City of Cape Town. We're demonstrating the use of biodegradable plastic mulch in agriculture, which is a significant user of plastic. We're looking at the innovative recovery of platform chemicals like ethanol from the pulp and paper industry. And how do we shape our chemical industry of the future? We have 2 projects that are looking at the innovative application of secondary resources in construction and building material. And for me, this is so exciting because just over the last few days, we've been talking around this issue of what does the future of Africa look like? How do we reimagine the development on our continent where we can decouple development from resource consumption? How can we leapfrog the development trajectory of the global north? And that is so incredibly exciting in terms of that vision of what our continent could look like. How do we rethink the design and the structure and the functioning of our cities and towns? How do we rethink the production of food and feed, especially for small-scale emerging farmers? We have a project that's looking at the treatment of water together with local authorities. And finally, we have our 8th project is looking at the use of clothing and textile, a significant problem that's facing us internationally. And again, just over the last few days at the International Solid Waste Association conference, there were some really heated debates around the movement of waste clothing, for example. A lot of it of which is being dumped onto our continent. And does it make sense for this to be happening? So I'm really excited that these 8 projects are the kickstart to our demonstration fund. And I hope that over time, we can be demonstrating a lot more. As I wrap up, I also want to just highlight 3 very exciting initiatives that are really, we have just given birth to. In the new decadal plan of national government, the Science, Technology and Innovation Decadal Plan, it prioritizes 3 economic sectors in South Africa. It's around modernizing mining, modernizing manufacturing, and modernizing agriculture. And the first question I asked them when I heard that was, do you mean mechanizing? And I was reassured that it wasn't, but it was rethinking these 3 resource-intensive industrial sectors, because they are sectors that have been recognized as being able to absorb and create jobs. And as a country, we desperately need to create jobs. The circular economy has been identified as a cross-cutting issue, as has the digital economy. And so in April this year, we launched the new South African Circular Minerals and Metals Initiative, which will be a collaboration across our universities and science councils. And their job will be to look at how we utilize our minerals and metals. And over the coming, hopefully, months, we will be moving towards launching the South African Circular Agriculture Initiative and the South African Circular Manufacturing Initiative. And equally, their role will be to support and drive science, technology, and innovation in these areas. I'm not going to spend too much time on this particular slide, other than just to say, we as a country have to rethink our relationship with our resources. The work that UCT did in partnership with Boku has showed that we're a very extractive-based economy, but we export a lot of that into international markets in unbeneficiated form. Very little of that actually goes into our own stock building, our own houses, roads, rail, dams, infrastructure. And does that make sense? It also highlighted that we have 18 strategic and critical raw materials, 5 of which have less than 50 years of economically viable mining remaining. And for many of you in the room, that's within your lifespan. What happens when we run out of those resources? And I was quite astonished, frankly, when I saw how little of our resources go into our stock building compared to other countries. And it made us stop and ask this question, are we using our resources in the best interest of our people? And I hope that you can keep that question in your mind over the next 2 days in terms of framing the discussion and the context. And how do we drive greater circularity? How do we ensure that we are using our resources in the best interest of our people and in the best interest of our development and our growth path? I don't think I'm going to spend any time on that one. Can I jump it before you even see it? I'm going to conclude. If there's anything that you take away from this one, remember, please, it's not about waste management. It's about sustainable resource management. I honestly do believe that it creates opportunities for new businesses, and we've seen some of those this morning with these incredible designs. Creates opportunities for new types of businesses, new business models. We are seeing businesses emerge that just 2, 3, 5 years ago we never even thought were possible. And that is exciting. The circular economy calls for disruption. It calls for innovation. And there's a very, I hope that wasn't in response to the great timing. It highlights the incredibly important role that, again, our universities, our colleges, our science councils, our schools can play in helping to disrupt and to innovate. And it's so important, if I close just with one comment, it's this issue around collaboration. We can't do this. None of us can do this on our own. It requires everybody in the room and also those that are joining, I think, virtually today. It requires collaboration. It also requires harnessing the infrastructure, the capability that we have across so many of our leading institutions, across our universities, our science councils, to help drive these circular practices. So I wish you a wonderful 2 days. I will certainly be with you in spirit, and I'll be following on social media, so use that hashtag because that's the one I'm going to be following. And I hope that you have a very, very successful day, and this is just the start of a lot more to come. Thank you.